Turning 65 is a milestone, and honestly one that should be celebrated. But it doesn't mean the end of anything. Many people today live to be 100, and that's 25 more years for you.
And I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it.
Okay.
I turned 65 this past April, and it made me start to reflect a little bit on what I've done up till now. But then I started thinking, I still have 1/3 of my life ahead of me. So my thinking included some dreaming, as well as some critical decisions I had to make because I turned 65.
You know, having a great sound financial plan prior to retirement is absolutely critical. But it doesn't alleviate you from the questions and the phone calls about things like health insurance and Medicare.
Yeah, and then there's the whole family of legal issues around wills and trusts, or if you get a long-term illness, I don't know if you have long-term care insurance, but that's something to consider. And then your life insurance. You know, if you have life insurance, you can actually make changes to it if you want, but it's important to know how it works.
Right. You know, we are not financial planners. In fact, Retirement Transformed is about having a plan for everything else in your life, assuming your financials are in place.
But since we just went through this, we wanted to point out a few key topics that are going to come up when you turn 65.
And let's be clear, we didn't go through it.
No, I led the path.
You led the path in
I
turning
cut down
65.
all the trees, and now you get to learn from everything
I do.
that I learned.
You know, being a few years behind Mark is a huge advantage for me. But also
7 or 8. 8.
A lot. But also a learning curve as well. So let's get into it. Here are critical choices to consider when you're turning 65. The first thing that we would recommend is building your team. You know, building your team, which includes your financial planner,
Right.
getting guidance on your money, a lawyer for all of your legal affairs, an accountant to support your financial advisor.
And then we also have created for ourselves a medical team. You know, we look at our dentist, our GP, gynecologist. I don't have one of those.
Our naturopath doctor. Yeah.
All of that as a medical team. We have our insurance advisor on the life insurance and long-term care, and anyone else you want to bring in, like a nutritionist or a wellness coach. But we have a team for ourselves for the next 25, 30 years to help us with advice that we might need.
And really, who you assemble on your team depends on your vision for your future in retirement.
Right.
So the first thing is build your team.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing to consider is familiarize yourself with Medicare and Medicaid, and don't be afraid to ask for help. For most people, turning 65 means you're eligible for an original Medicare plan, a Part A, a Part B, and there are all these supplements for better coverage as well. Find an advisor that can help you.
And I'll tell you, finding an advisor is a lot easier than you think, because about 3 or 4 months before my 65th birthday, my cell phone started ringing. And honestly, there were 10 different people calling me up to tell me they got my name off a government list that shows I'm turning 65
Right.
in April, and can they talk to me about Medicare, Medicaid? And we have regular health insurance now, so we don't need it. So I didn't really follow through with anybody, but they're going to find you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless
The resources will definitely find you.
Yeah.
And the important thing is to find someone that can help you, because it is complicated, but it is very necessary for you to understand.
It is complicated, and that's one of the reasons I stayed away from it, because we have health insurance. I still have this one guy that keeps calling me, telling me, I have to talk to you. You don't understand the difference. And I go, yeah, but I have everything in place. Yeah, but that might not last forever. So they will hound you, but
Right. It is
when the
important to
time
understand.
comes, we will definitely sit down and figure it out.
Right.
So another big decision to make when you turn 65, and it might just, maybe it's not 65, but coinciding with retirement, is whether or not you really want to retire at 65 or keep working. Now, there's so many companies out there today that will let you stay on part-time, whatever it might be, and we have so many clients that have perhaps retired, but they become consultants or coaches or mentors. You know, they didn't want to stop.
Right. And we also have clients, or even ourselves, that start businesses, start or get way deep involved in nonprofits. Some are writing books. There's a lot that you can do, but you need to make that decision.
Yeah, and if you're doing it for money,
Supplemental
income
Yeah.
to keep an expense account for a car allowance or something. You only want to work 10 hours a week. It will give you extra cash, right? It's a little bit of income. You're immediately going to have another new community to hang out with for 5-10 hours a week, right? It's going to fill your day with some work, and it's also going to bring you some fulfillment. So these are all good reasons to think about continuing to retire and not just say, well, I've retired, so it's over.
Right. Well, the other thing is, and don't forget, at some point you have to get yourself on this whole financial train. You have to get familiar with Social Security or your pension,
Right.
and you need to coordinate that with your financial
Yeah,
retirement.
and you were lucky. You had an old school pension.
I did.
And you started taking it. We decided with our financial planner it made sense to take it now
Right.
versus waiting. It's
Right.
not as high as it would be, but it's enough to take us out to dinner once in a while.
Once in a while.
Yeah. So another one is really getting your medical appointments up to date. And I can't emphasize this one enough. We turned 65 and we took a look at, well, part of our business, we actually talk about this a lot, but really getting a baseline on what your health is like at 65 going forward. And that includes going to your GP for an annual exam, your eye doctor.
Your gynecologist, getting your colonoscopy up to date, prostate health for men, certainly. Your dentist, making sure you're up to date with your dental appointments, and even getting your hearing checked.
Right.
I mean, all of those things give you a baseline at age 65 where you can look forward to the next 25 years.
Now, we're putting a link below in the comments, right at the top, for our health and wellness checklist. You really want to download this checklist. It actually goes through all the doctors, reminds you what you need to do, what are the next steps. It's a great guide for everything we just talked about. It's actually part of our online course, but we're going to put it in the link below. So please click that link and download it. And you have to be honest with yourself when you fill this out. I have a good friend whose mantra with doctors is he doesn't go to the doctor
or the dentist.
Because he doesn't want to look for trouble,
Right.
which is not the way to go about this.
No, especially as you're aging, it's good to get your baseline, and it's good to know there are things you can do proactively
Right.
to stay ahead of it. Another critical thing to think about as you turn 65 is getting your legal documents in order. Your wills, your trusts, your power of attorney, any living wills that you might need, and certainly any healthcare proxies.
And I will tell you, these are easy things to do. Not everyone needs a trust, but you definitely need a will. You have to have a power of attorney. You need living wills so that people can decide for you, what happens if you get terminally ill, and healthcare proxies. It's not hard to do. It's not expensive. You call a lawyer, and most of this stuff is pretty
Boilerplate.
Boilerplate. Yep. But one of the worst things you can do is not do any of that,
Right.
and leave behind a mess for your kids or your family to clean up. It just isn't really a nice thing to do.
No, you experienced that, actually.
I did. My mom and dad had all of this in order, so it was helpful for my brother, my sister, and I to make some end-of-life decisions for my parents because they had all of this in order.
But even with all of that in good order, it still got a little complicated.
It did.
So with none of it in place, you can imagine what a nightmare it
I
would
can't
have
even
been.
imagine.
Yeah.
I can't
so
imagine.
so it's important to do it not only for you and your mindset and your peace of mind, but also for those that you may leave behind, right? Another thing to do is not only do you need to investigate everything we're talking about, but you actually have to communicate this to your children and your loved ones. Don't let them be surprised, right? Set out a communication plan to make sure they know your wishes and make sure they know your plans.
Yeah, you want to have a conversation with everyone in your life about your end-of-life wishes. Do you have a burial plot somewhere? Do you want to be cremated? If you're going to be cremated, where do you want your ashes? What kind of a funeral do you want? So you don't want to let them wonder what it is that you want done.
And even though these are difficult conversations, if you have them once in an effective way, you don't have to talk about it again.
That's right.
You have all your documents in order, you've had the conversations, and then you can just go about living your life. You know, my mom had all of this in order. I mean, everything in order. She was a banker, so she had a lot of things in order. But even leaving notes for me on yellow sticky notes, which I still have, in her safety deposit box, which gave me instructions on everything she wanted in her at her funeral, what she wanted her grandchildren to do, everything. And at first I was kind of like, wow, this is like pretty controlling. And then I was like, what a gift.
Yeah, it was nice.
Because it took a lot of decisions away from us.
So much of this planning and talking and everything causes stress and anxiety. And it takes some discipline to focus on these important issues, but they are really critically important for those that you leave behind.
And you know, it's easy to tackle them one at a time. You have the time now, and this is important, so don't ignore it. Also, leave a lot of room to celebrate being 65.
Now click this link for the next video, the 4 phases of retirement. It's a perfect addition to this video. We talk about pre-retirement, the honeymoon phase, disenchantment, and then reorientation and moving on. So click the link right here.